Good evening and welcome to another scene in Edessa The Dark Crusade, Season 2. This is a very eventful night. Madeline had gone to Timoran, woken in Timoran. Just at the earliest, she'd gotten to her home, then went over to see Johanna. Then Johanna changed character quite a bit, knocked her into the air with an immense strength. And since then, her house has burned down quite fast after that. Madeline then returned to Timoran as fast as she could, informed Ulrich, and Ulrich is now with her in Timoran. And now, after going home and getting her armor on, she had done quite a few, glances at a map and preparations. She has hopes of finding Ulrich, the Tremere that was also present and saw this incident happen. But right now she needs something a bit more, pressing for her mind. She's heading to Ulrich's old haven. She's cloaked. She's doing her best to just remain hidden. And Irene will hear knocking at the door at one point. It's not that loud. It's still some force behind it.
Mm-hmm. And she will probably send her ghoul to open the door. So in front of Madeline, there is an old nun, like really old, standing there. Like you're
An audible scuff can be heard. Old fool, I have no time. Where is your lady?
and she'll yeah, like the woman will do her version of a curtsy. It's probably not like that deep because you
Yeah.
know
Okay, Madeline just walks past her. She doesn't have time
and
for
she'll inform you that Irene is in the study or something like,
that. Yeah. Um,
which Madeline will probably know
you
where
will
to
hear
find.
as soon as she enters and the cloak covering her is removed. You will hear the noise of like a saucepan cupboard trying to move up a flight of stairs.
Oh boy. Um, I know Ulrich sent some guards along, so they're probably they will probably recognize Madeline, but with the sword clattering and everything, they will be a bit more on guard. And yeah, once you.
She will just hand over her sword to one of them,
Mm-hmm.
and she will just say, "Hold this for the moment." And she surrenders her arms, so she's not armed when
Yeah,
she goes in.
that will definitely help them relax. Although, like I said, I can't imagine them not knowing Madeline. So, yeah.
They definitely know her.
And yeah, once you open the door to the study, the old ghoul probably going after you, like, let me at least properly introduce. But yeah.
And she will just say, "Please, return to your duties. Make sure that everything is safe and the place is as it should be."
Yeah, I really don't think the ghoul is gonna refuse any kind of.
Yeah, Madeline just gets in, closes the door, just looks around for you, and as soon as she spots you, she comes over, and you could actually tell that she breathes a sigh of relief.
Yep, Irene would have gotten up as soon as she saw Madeline entering. Madeline can clearly see that her movements are not as fluid as they normally are. Um, Irene has like taken off her jewelry and looks more like yeah, relaxed mode. since it's basically
Hmm.
her place to stay right now.
Madeline is wearing the same armor she was when you were in the sewers. It's obviously been cleaned a little. It's not. It probably still smells a bit,
Hmm.
but it's visibly not like covered in shit.
That is helpful, yeah.
But like she's just comes in and just like actually she will hug you, um, or just like put her arms around you and just it is good to do as safe.
Lady Madeline, are you all right?
I will be. You
You
managed to
heard.
get out of there, I assume.
Yeah, the place caught fire, but I got out, mostly intact. Whatever happened to Johanna, she was repelled by something I carry. As her, actually, that crucifix is visible, and Irene will slightly touch her, place one of her hands on top of it.
First time in an age, well, a lifetime or two, that I have heard of a crucifix doing any good. Well, I suppose this is a good thing.
I got it from the leader of the hunters.
She pauses, looks at you, looks at it. Truly, that might explain a certain couple of things. Keep that close. It might become important.
I plan to use it.
Good. Do you know what is required of you, me, others?
I think we have to stop Johanna tomorrow. I'm
I
not
know.
sure, but I feel we'll have to. What I've
When
seen.
it's when the place was burned down, was that your doing,
No,
Ulrich's doing, or
no.
was it its doing?
Ulrich set it on fire, but the building burning down, I don't believe it was his doing. It hit all of us.
So it is the same thing that was with Margot, a demon.
I don't know enough about demons to say that. All I know is that that is not Johanna.
That affinity for fire is not something you come across every day.
That is fair. I will remember that.
And there seem to be quite a few people who thought that someone, maybe not Johanna, but, well, they thought that Johanna was the one. Obviously, it was Margot who had made a deal with it. Perhaps they were more perceptive than we give them credit for. Perhaps they saw something else.
Or perhaps Margot lured Johanna into a trap.
Exactly. We do not have much time. I am going to ask you. I saw the ash say the word to tomorrow. Obviously, it probably wants something tomorrow. But you were talking to someone, or tried to talk to someone. I'm going to
Yes.
ask you, and we need to understand or need to help each other in this. Need to understand what you saw. You
What
were
I
quite
saw.
adamant that she stick herself, and that
Yes,
implies that you saw a lot more than just tomorrow.
I did. Not just tonight. Before that, I already knew. Remember, before all that happened, I spoke of three figures:
Yes.
the Nosferatu gentleman and a very pristine-looking lady. and a beast. I have no way of otherwise describing it than that. Terrifying, horrible looking. I saw before tonight. I had a dream. Need to grab that text. Oh fuck, other page. God damn it. I it was when I was when I was with the when I was with the hunters actually. When I saw it started with the dark, almost a pool of shadowy fur that swirled around the palace of Edessa. And from and then it almost flaunted the grounds of the palace, but it was blocked by the doors. It couldn't enter the palace itself. It was being pushed back actually when the palace opened and the prince came out with an army of heavy plated people, but there was nothing behind the plate but a dim glow. From that pool of shadow that it engaged in, but before they actually engaged, I saw the male and the female rising up out of it, and then behind the female was that animal. They fought against the prince, and these two, like the prince and its army and them, and they kind of clashed outside of the palace. But as this happened, I saw someone slipping into the palace. I couldn't see it very clearly, but I already figured that that was Johanna, a pale figure with the vestments of a nun. At that point, I already knew that there was something terrible going to happen, and Johanna had a big role to play in it. But I did not know what or when or how, and these visions, they are vague. I didn't tell her. I told her a little bit about the vision, but I did not tell her that she was in it. I'm not quite sure if it would have mattered. Maybe it would have. I don't know. All I know is that whatever's happening, that confrontation is actually part of a bigger thing. It's not the confrontation itself that is the entire plan. There's a bigger plan happening, but I can't see it because the confrontation is hiding it. And it's like a ploy. And I guess because I am part of it, because I think we all are, I couldn't see the end yet. I don't know what's going to happen. So that I knew before what happened just now. And I've spoken with a few people about it. I have actually spoken with the Malkavian Garnets. And I think he may know something about it as well, though I'm not quite sure what.
I would advise you in the future not to speak with the Malkavians unless you have any other choice.
I had a feeling I didn't. Ulrich doesn't want to speak with me. I didn't know where else to go for advice.
I will always give you advice, if I am able. The problem is, if they have a Malkavian on their side, they might know that you know of it. That is the problem.
I was not aware.
Um, it may be a rumor, conjecture, but well,
I didn't
Malkavians
tell him.
possess Malkavians possess aspects. It might just be a common delusion. I do not know.
Well, neither do I.
Regardless,
I didn't tell him a lot about it, though.
this will not be enough to alarm the prince of. It is a premonition, but no real evidence will be able to be provided that it will happen. But we do know that Joanna seemingly is going to, well, someone is going to have to make Joanna do something tomorrow.
Yeah, that's. I. Like I said, I didn't know when this was going to happen. When I got this, like I said, it was during a day when I resided with the hunters. Um.
If we are to
So
believe what you have seen, it could be. It does not mean to. It may not suggest that it all will take place tomorrow. Perhaps the attack will happen tomorrow, or it will happen at a later time, and Joanna will do it at another time, but the diversion has been caused nonetheless.
I don't think. I think it's going to happen tomorrow with the vision. The thing that's. It, did everyone see it?
Not to what you say, not in detail. At least I did not.
Well, there's more. What I
Please,
saw
go on.
just now, it was a new vision, but with the same people. So perhaps I'm telling you things that you know, but when we were at Johanna's place, I saw red blood, very thick like, dripping from the ceiling. And when it hit the ground, it spread into ashes, spelling the word tomorrow. That's basically what you said you saw as well.
Yes.
When I looked around the room, the walls were decaying. And the pictures on the walls, there were painted figures taking place of the original people in the painting. There were 4 paintings. The first was of the same Nosferatu gentleman, pale, pointy-eared, bald. I think that might be the one called a tactician. I'm not sure though, because I have not seen the tactician himself. So he's sitting in that image and is smiling straight into the room, looking to the opposite side of the room. And there's another portrait, but it's a portrait of the prince. Now he is portrayed as a hanged man. He doesn't have eyes, only see the sockets, and he's covered in dust. His painting, the other ones, they look fresh. His one looked old and dusty and rotting. And yeah, he hangs. Now, next painting is again that woman. I described earlier. She's beautiful. She's golden hairs, bright eyes. She looks like she is good incarnated. But behind her, in the same painting, is again that beast. Like that menacing, gargantuan beast. And it looms over her. And she
A, host-
has. Hmm?
a hostage?
I don't know. I don't think so, given the fact that she is, in my previous vision, with the beast and the man attacking the prince. I feel it might more be that she's controlling that beast. She has some sort of control over it, but I'm not sure. That's something I'm thinking, but I'm not sure. She has a look of resentment on her face, but she's not looking anywhere. She's looking down. So I'm not sure if she would be a hostage, or I presumed her to be a part of the, well, the enemy basically, but I'm not entirely sure. And then there was the last painting, and that painting actually moved. It almost seemed to, like the figure inside of it almost seemed to come out of the frame. And it has some sort of a human shape, but it's a massive eyes and tendrils, dark and black, almost like our own tendrils, but it's not the same. And it's it seems to look at me. Like it seems to be aware that I can see it. But when I asked it, it didn't respond, except it narrowed its eyes. As I'm looking at that picture, I could hear sounds of scratching and brushing, like someone writing something on a piece of paper or doing something with paper. So it comes from the corner of the room. Before I get there, I can see long silver hair flowing into that direction. And when I look there, there's a small table with painting tools on it, and there's a woman sitting with long silver hair, and she's painting. And she goes at it extremely fast, but not rough. It's she definitely knows what she's doing. And she seems to be making another painting. And she also seemed to know I was there. She's much like a witness, I have the feeling. Um, like registering what's happening in her paintings. And she's painting like the things that I saw that I just told you about in the vision before this one. So I asked if she had a name. And she didn't really seem to care about it. When I asked if I could call her the painter, that seemed to be fine. I asked if I could find her somewhere, but she just pressed her finger against her lips and then continued painting. And At some point she stops and the painting is not yet finished. Um, and she looks at the other paintings and she seems to be sort of annoyed with them, especially the one that actually moved, like the shadow tentacle figure. Um, she also looks a bit sad. And I asked her if she was there to help. And she didn't respond, but she pointed to the other paintings. And from there on, the paint from the other paintings seemed to be added to the one that she was painting, almost finishing it. And the other paintings were empty. And when I
And
look at that painting, it's actually at that point, it's clear that Johanna is definitely slipping into the palace. The painter doesn't know what's beyond the painting. She goes further. She paints, she continues, but it's more the city. Like there's three scenarios. There's a city being alive and then growing into the city that's dead. But then she continues painting and the city just looks destructed, destroyed. There's a fire, a creature in the background, and a woman. These are not the same people that I saw before. Something gets torn out of that creature at the end of the painting. And even the thing that is torn out seems to have many more forms. And I really don't know what that was all about. It was all very, like, symbolic almost. It's not a timeline. It's not what's gonna happen. It's not that the city's going from life to dead to destructed. It might be things that could happen, possible outcomes. But I
well,
could see Ulrich in it as well at some point, but almost like it was from the past, because he was standing there in the city in a place of power.
perhaps it is not Edessa.
No, it's definitely Edessa.
Well, we do know of a thing that literally changes shape, don't we?
Do we?
She smiles at you. The dragon.
It changes shape? Right. I'd not thought about it.
Perhaps it is not as literal, but it seems to have quite a few other shapes. And it is something that we can both determine is quite powerful. Perhaps it is an interest to someone. I am not saying that this is the case, but a thing to consider nonetheless.
It was not even the end yet. That was more. But it becomes so vague.
You
So
must
when
calm yourself. Perhaps it will become clearer in the future. This has given us a potential, a potential way of warning, preparing for what happens tomorrow.
yes,
If Joanna is to do this tomorrow, I find it we must make sure, first of all, she is caught. If that is not possible, we need to make sure that that palace is fortified. Not knowingly, but some of us should be inside waiting for her. So
yeah,
whenever she enters due to the confusion, if that is what is going to happen, a trap will be sprung for her. She will
Mhm.
be pacified, brought down, and whatever that demon wants, it will not get.
I agree. I actually have a few ideas about that.
We
Um,
must, however, concern consider a thing. If this is the demon that Margot made to deal with, Margot might become a problem. We need to
uh,
stake her. We need to pacify her.
hmm,
Who is to say that if we find Joanna, that Margot
mhm,
would not be affected as well?
I agree. But do you think it is wisdom to stake Margot beforehand, or perhaps to have her with us in the palace and stake her to form perhaps a distraction? Last time you tried to do that, the demon came to protect her.
There are
If he's
different ways to do it.
if he's made a deal with her to protect her, then it would need to do something at that point, which would give us the opportunity to strike at it.
This is true. However, one thing to consider when we were in the tunnels with the rats and she was very near death,
It didn't come for her.
I did not.
I noticed that as well. Perhaps it feels more comfortable having Johanna.
And maybe it does not need Margot anymore. But if we pacify Johanna, certainly it will need Margot.
That is true. Do you intend to kill Johanna?
Madeline just pauses. If that is the only way, then that is what I will do.
It might not be. I actually sent out a letter to one of the salubri. I have to tell you this, but I remember this is something that when you asked about it a few months ago, Ulrich did not want to share this information with you. But I feel at this point that it might be important that you know. But please promise to keep it from anyone.
Of course. You are my princess and my very dear friends. Childer, I understand that he chose to not disclose certain things, and that is his business. But I firmly believe that if you decide to share it, it is your choice, and that is.
So, right before, well, right, a couple of days, perhaps a couple of weeks before Prince Ulrich decided to take me as his challenger, I I remember I was at your haven and my behavior was odd. It's not my reactions were not mine in a way. That is because they truly weren't mine. not long before that, we had gone to a cave.
The temple.
Yes,
Ulrich and I examined it afterwards.
I am still not exactly sure what happened there. But when we got back to Edessa, I was carrying something with me. There was someone in my head. And it told me to call her mother. It made me reject Celine as my mother, as my sire. Although at that point we did not speak a lot anymore, and she left short after, which I don't think had anything to do with my actions, but I'm not sure. Ulrich found out about this because being in his presence made me literally sick. I wanted to get away from him. The voice in my head's mother was screaming at me to get away from him, to not be near him.
Madeline seems to just cling, almost like she seems very, very focused on you at this point.
So there came a point when I had to, when one of the ancillae of Edessa, the one who's now sheriff in Timuran, Oktar, he needed to go and visit Ulrich. And when he found out that I knew where he lived here in Edessa, he told me that I should escort him, which of course I could not refuse. There had also been a message from Lady Julia of the Gangrel to Ulrich that she asked me to deliver. So I went to his place and I felt sick until he grabbed me, and it all seemed to escalate and then suddenly disappear. And I was in a lot of stress. I had no sire, and the person that watched over me, my mother, was gone. She's out of my head. I could not hear her. So I fought. I wanted to be away from Ulrich, but he caught me, staked me. He told me later that he had asked one of the Salubri to help me. And he did something to me, and I got into a dream where I was brought to this altar, almost like a sacrificial lamb. It's called a chosen child or something. And I fought this woman that called herself mother in my head. And with the help of the Salubri, she was forced to release me, or I was strong enough to get her out of me and out of my head. After that happened, Ulrich asked if I wanted to be his child. I figure if the Salubri can help me with this, they might be able to help Johanna with this.
Madeline she just like you'll see a fairly genuine smile, and she's nodding as you're explaining this. Um, you could swear like you're almost hearing like like certain things fall into place in Madeline's head. Like
Mm-hmm.
you can't see it, but swear you can hear it. But she just says, "The Salubri are quite far away. There are not that many of them left in the city, and we have a very, very close deadline on this."
I realized that, but I figured I should at least send out for them.
The more help we get, the better. I see no harm in trying, as long as it does not take you away from your preparations.
Of course not.
Hmm.
As far as I can prepare, I will.
Good. I will hopefully press to Ulrich and be successful to tell him that there might be an attack on the prince, but
I have told the Seneschal, our Primogen, what happened. I hope he can get word out to the prince.
I hope so too.
I don't have
I just hope
much.
we can catch Joanna at least before she does
Yeah,
whatever it is, whatever this demon wants, is dealt with before.
I figure the confrontation that the prince is gonna have tomorrow will be to cover up whatever Johanna is doing. I hope we can get a group of us in the palace and see if we can catch her, stop her.
Indeed.
I had another idea, but I'm not sure. It might be very risky for everyone involved. I might be able to get the hunter's assistance on this.
You are ambitious, I will give you that.
I've spoken at great length with their leader while I was there.
You do realize that this would have them potentially get introduced to some very delicate dealings of our kind, and that would be seen as a, well, perhaps not an immediate death sentence, but at least something to that effect.
I was figuring I could send maybe a message to them, asking them to be ready. If that army attacks, they already know of us. And they know enough. Some of them are ghouls. If that army attacks, and the hunters could attack in the back of our enemies.
Hmm. Hmm. You might actually have a point.
I'm not sure. I know there's great risk involved. And I know it's easy to, if anything goes wrong.
If nothing else, they might actually have the chance to see a real demon. Stop calling us demons.
I guess. Do you think I should send out word to them?
She smiles to Irene, just says, for some weird reason, I do believe I will agree with you. Send that letter. I will help it. Well, a runner is a runner. But, yes, this plan has been set in motion for quite some things. The least we can do is throw a couple of sticks at the wheel. Hopefully, one of them will sit and stop the cart dead in its tracks. If they do not see this coming, or do not deal with it as good as they should do, well, it will be a setback for their plans, and I do not believe that would be a bad thing.
I suppose not, from our point of view.
Of course, we must be ready to. It would greatly fit us if we could find a way to make sure that the hunters would have no idea who sent the letter. She smiles.
If I...
If some of them are captured and say that you tipped them off, and some of the people defending the prince, or perhaps even the prince himself, gets killed by these hunters, hmm, trust me, you do not want to be associated with them then.
I would send words to their leader, not to the hunters as a group. I can ask him to keep his source to himself. I highly doubt he would be the person to either be taken captive or to...
You asked before about advice, and this is my advice to you.
I understand, but the risk is that they will not trust it or see it as a trap. If I give my name to their leader, he would know. But it's a thin line to walk. I will think about it, and I will take your advice.
Well, think of it at least. I doubt that there is much we can do if the hunters do meet suddenly appear and kill members of the court that are in good standing, and it is found out that they have been sent by you. Well, I do not think Ulrich will be able to save you from that.
I understand. Understand very well. Is there anything that we need to do? Is there anything I can help with?
Prepare. Make sure that we have perhaps means to block off certain entrances to the palace as soon as possible tomorrow.
I have
If
a little
we
sway over the city watch, but
no,
only very little.
that is not what I meant.
Oh,
Barred entrances. Made them impassable. So there is only like one or two ways into the palace instead of however many entrances there are now. But I wonder what it would want in there. Perhaps it is something in the prince's possession?
Perhaps. I know there are many things that have happened in and amongst Edessa. I've seen some of them. It's like there has been a city here before. Different, but I'm not sure. And
There was. You know the stories.
mm, I can't help but feel that it's all connected to each other. These figures now, but also perhaps the one that Ulrich is chasing. Everyone seems to come to Edessa. There must be something.
It would be quite the thing to learn exactly what happened to the previous inhabitants of this city, no?
Perhaps they've all been sacrificed.
Perhaps. Well, all except the red man, but I doubt very few people could get it up on him, but oh well. I thank you for your time. Will you be staying here?
I suppose,
You are
unless like
welcome to stay at my place. It will not be as good, well protected as this, but she
have
looks at
you?
you. One question.
Yes.
The person in your mind,
Hmm.
did it have any association with the person, the monster that he is hunting?
She nods.
Do you know which connection?
It was her.
Like you will hear some sort of like merde, but just in the French of the time. Madeline will just, well, they do say that this type of kindred, however strange, and they are associating with demons. One could get the idea that the coincidence is not exactly what has happened.
I think I understand what you're saying.
Maybe it is, but another thing to consider. Get well, get as well as you can.
I will do my best.
I'm beginning to think that they were waiting. The rats were not necessarily, well, they were definitely a distraction, but they were also meant, seemingly, as something for us to break ourselves upon. And once we had done that, then they would strike. Quite clever.
Mm. Yeah,
Unlucky
no,
for them, none of us died in the attempt.
mm, I'm glad we didn't.
We will see these cretins to dust, I hope.
Or perhaps tomorrow.
If only we could be so lucky.
If this tactician is there tomorrow, why wouldn't his army be?
Maybe some of his army is there. Maybe it is not. Maybe he needs it for something else.
A shadow pool of fur surrounding a palace. I think they'll be there. I'm not sure.
Steel yourself, young one. Tomorrow will be a day of many trials, I believe.
I believe so too. Is my sire aware?
Sorry, what did you ask?
Is my sire aware? Have you sent word to Ulrich?
He has returned to Edessa. He is in the city.
There's a like a look of relief and even sort of hope.
Oh, I'm quite certain that when I mentioned the possibility of a demon has been returned, I was not able to keep him away.
Then I will stay here.
Very well. I still. She looks out of the window. It's it's early and I'm like it's still not, the sun is not up, but it's like she spent a lot of time and she's running out of time now.
Mm.
And she's just, I was hoping to maybe make another stop, but I must return home. I will see you as soon as I can tomorrow evening. Have all able-bodied men to the temple or the palace as soon as possible.
I will do my best. See who we can find.
Hmm.
I'll send
Madeline
word
just
out to the Tsimisi at least. They know me and I think hold me in some regard.
Madeline just stops at the door, just taps the door frame, and she puts on her cloak, makes sure that her armor is not shown. She just taps it and just says, "One called the tactician. If one were to be paranoid, I suppose one could think that this revelation was also part of the plan. And if so, he would want us to fortify the palace as much as possible.
Mm.
And that is his plan all along, but oh well.
Perhaps. But
Such bendings of the mind are somewhat useless, in my opinion."
mhm, I think so too.
She nods to you, and then she just says, "Good night, Eddie. I will see you tomorrow." And she gets her sword and she begins to leave.
Yep. And Irene will wish her a good night as well, and we'll sit back down behind the desk and starts writing. And with that, we can end the scene. Thank you, player, for playing. Thank you, watchers, for watching. This was another scene for Edessa the Dark Crusade, Season 2.